Today's episode is brought to you by FantasyChamps.com, your home for trophies, rings, championship belts, and custom fantasy football jerseys. Use the promo code BALLERS to save 10%.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
SMH!
Whoa!
Just shaking my head after that weekend of football.
Thought you were going a different direction, but all right.
Can you believe?
No. No.
Impossible.
Impossible.
And yet, NFL football, playoff football. Welcome into the show. It feels like it's been forever.
You're talking about the Titans just getting smashed, right?
Yeah, impossible.
I was so sure.
No. I was obviously talking about the Jaguars.
That too.
No, Stephon Diggs, Case Keenum, the end of that game, absolutely bananas. At a loss for words. How does that happen? I don't know. If you watched it, this is why we love football. This is why we love fantasy football. This not so much why you love sports betting. I believe that pushed the line. I believe that made it a push, and it also ruined the over-under for those that were under.
Ooh.
But that's not what this show's about.
No. I could watch that last play 100 times in a row and not grow tired of just the incredible human reaction. The fact that it was a home game for that team to pull it out at the end for the Vikings. I mean, it was I've watched every angle, every broadcast, and I could do it all over again and again.
Radio
and again.
call. And
it's just unbelievable. I
can't imagine being a Vikings fan.
No, it's to be at that stadium in that moment. I can't even imagine.
Now, I was at a Cardinal-Packer playoff game where it was a walk-off, right? It went to overtime, and there was a fumble, and that was the closest that I can get to feeling
similar,
that emotion.
Not as dramatic.
No, not as dramatic.
Yeah.
So, incredible. We'll talk more about these playoff matchups as well. We got a good quick question on the show today. We are the Fantasy Footballers, and we are your year-round fantasy football podcast, always bringing you what you need to win. And we are sitting here. It's Tuesday, January 16th, and today we begin our journey into running back consistency. This is the truth.
Tell the truth.
So what are we talking about with the truth? I mean, we did these episodes last week with the wide receiver position, but break it down for me, Jay.
Yeah, so the Truth series that we've been going through.
You're going serum.
The Truth Serum is what we do is we take a look at the positions and we break down, okay, regardless of how a guy felt, whether you owned a guy and you felt those really bad games or you felt those really good games, or maybe you didn't have any stake in a certain running back who might have been a whole lot better than you remember, we are now taking a look basically from top to bottom at all of the running backs and saying, let's actually see how did they do, who helped people, who were the guys that were very consistent and did not crap your team. And the more that we've looked into this with running backs, the more that I am fully convinced you have to have a top running back. The difference between the top few running backs, especially the top 10 running backs, and anyone else at any other position, with the sole exception of maybe Gronk alone at tight end, it is an unfair advantage that is so weighty you can't really make up for it in any other way. If you don't have one of those guys and you were going deep into the playoffs, you needed 3 top 10 wide receiver type of guys to have this level of consistency.
Yeah, and you ran an interesting Twitter poll we'll get into later. Sometimes you do need Truth Serum because when a player starts the year a certain way or they finish the year a certain way, that permeates your feeling about a player through the offseason. It affects their draft position, and you don't realize what actually happened. I mean, Kareem Hunt is one of those players that there's a distortion, right, to the view of Kareem Hunt, and we're going to look into all of that today. I'm excited.
We're removing the emotion.
Yeah, and you need that. You need
Yeah.
that to be able to look clearly for next year and be able to balance building a team the right way. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Our community, where you get an extra episode every week, is jointhefoot.com. The website's thefantasyfootballers.com. And we're on all the social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube. You can watch our show. You can find us everywhere. Mike is waving. Here's a quick question for you, a fun one. Who is your favorite player to watch in 2017? And Brooks pre-selected this. Brooks is actually out of the office today.
What a slacker.
This is the first time that's happened in more than a year. So
last time.
Yeah, last time. But he set this one up. It says, who's your favorite player to watch? And he says we cannot pick Super Kamara.
It's a fair stipulation because
no Alvin Kamara allowed.
Watching Alvin Kamara was incredible. I'll kick it off. It's Kareem Hunt. Yeah, we'll get into the truth about his actual numbers, but watch Kareem Hunt when he's actually getting carries, and he is unbelievable. I mean, the guy very, very rarely goes down with the first tackler. I mean, just shedding tackles, causing guys to miss, making professional football players look foolish. So Kareem Hunt was by far my favorite guy to watch as he takes a 3-yard carry and all of a sudden he got 7 yards.
Yeah,
so he was my favorite.
The rookie running backs this year were a delight to watch all the way around. For me, I actually think the guy that I enjoyed watching the most was possibly my biggest miss coming into the season. I was not high at all on DeAndre Hopkins and his outlook coming into the season. I was wrong because he's good. But he won me over this year because of watching. He was such a delight to watch. I mean, his hand fighting on every single play against every team.
That's what we'll call it.
Yeah, we'll call it hand fighting. No,
I don't know
offensive
why
pass
people,
interference here.
They all the good ones do that.
Oh, but
they fight through.
He's
His seems
special
a little
with it.
more egregious, though.
I don't know. I think he's just got really strong.
People just want to take away
got,
from
like,
him.
Clampy, strong
I'm
hands.
not trying to
He
take
has
away.
clampy hands.
Yeah. So
Mike, give him the clamps.
yeah. I mean, I feel like he could take this mug and just shatter it with his hand. And he's using these things as they go down the field right off the line, just always.
You've seen this, right? You've seen what he does to his gloves, right?
No.
Either of you know this?
No.
His hands are so big. I'm not joking. When he puts the biggest gloves on, on the sideline, he takes scissors and he cuts in between the fingers and the thumb.
Is this true?
This is absolutely true, so that his hands can stretch better in the glove. This is not a joke. He actually has to modify every new pair of gloves he puts on, and he cuts the break so that his hands can stretch properly.
If I were
So that they
another
can be
wide receiver,
clampier.
I would be going,
Here's
maybe I
the
should
thing.
cut my gloves.
Attention, Nike. Did you know that DeAndre Hopkins needs bigger gloves? Maybe you can help him out.
It might not just be the size. It might be the dexterity. Like he can move his. That way he can move his.
So the
hands.
gloves just suck. Nike, we're gonna need some more dexterity built in.
All right, so you went with DeAndre Hopkins. I'm gonna go deeper. It'd be easy to say Todd Gurley after this season and the amount of big games he had.
He's pretty fun to watch.
He's fun to watch, but I'm actually gonna go with just a personal favorite, a player from late last year that I just love to watch play football, and it's Adam Thielen. AO, always open. I mean, Adam Thielen is always open, and he makes those big time. I mean, you saw this yesterday. He climbed the ladder against Marshawn Lattimore. He went up about, 3 feet higher than I can jump. And
So you went up 3 feet.
3.5 feet. And look, he always holds on to the ball. I love players that can finish the play, right? Like you notice that when new, young wide receivers, rookies, they come in, and they don't have that it factor. Well, he's had it, and he proved himself to be an elite wide receiver option all year long. Big plays yesterday, so I'm gonna go with Adam Thielen. I think he's a blast to watch.
I love that.
All right, let's jump into some news.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, let's talk through these games a little bit.
Yes, I just wanted to give let's give a quick takeaway from each game.
Okay.
Or just what you noticed. And I'll start with the Falcons and the Eagles. And this is you got to give a tip of the cap. Actually, I'll go a tip of half of my cap.
Okay.
For Nick Foles. Because the second half of the game, Nick Foles was absolutely incredible. He was not very good during the first half of the game, but it was enough. I gave the Eagles very little chance to overcome the Falcons, but the defense is so strong for the Eagles. They shut the Falcons out in the second half.
I'll just say lost opportunities for Atlanta. I felt like they should have gone into halftime probably winning by 20 points, and they couldn't get it done.
Maybe keep giving Tevin Coleman the ball.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
He was playing so well.
And it came out after the game that
Devontae Freeman was
was
dealing with an MCL and a PCL sprain. I mean, you're right, Jason. Tevin Coleman, every time he touched the ball, it seemed like it was a chunk play, and then they get down to the goal line. They go, hey, Teron Ward, how about you come in, and we're going to flick the ball to you. Where is Tevin Coleman?
Steve Sarkisian in these, like, outthink myself goal line plays. I just don't understand it. It seems like it's a requirement.
All that being said, I have watched that Julio last second play so many more times since the end of that weekend, and I'm shocked that he didn't make the grab. I mean,
I don't think his feet were coming down in bounds.
See,
his feet came in like an inch on the white, but my guess is if he had the ball in his hands,
that's my guess too.
He would not. I mean, he didn't have the ball in his hands. He wasn't trying to get his feet in.
Yep.
So I think I watch it and I'm like, wait, that throw was good. It was timed well.
He got surprised by the ball a little bit, because he was coming up from being tackled. So, I mean, that was a play that I'm not saying you should have called that in that situation, but it obviously surprised him. He came out and said he should have made that play. Patriots and Titans, takeaway from that game.
Hope you played Corey Davis in your DFS lineups for those nice.
It's a nice catch.
Yeah.
Made me. I made a trade offer for him in our dynasty league.
You?
After seeing his involvement in the red zone. Otherwise, I mean,
not much to take away. The Patriots are better than the Titans, as
there you go.
Everyone thought they would be. I mean, are there any major takeaways there?
Just Deion Lewis.
Rex Burkhead may play next week.
It'll be interesting to see what they do once
James
Rex
White
Burkhead is back.
He loves the
great
playoffs.
in the playoffs.
Yeah, he loves the playoffs. And Deion Lewis was great as well. Jacksonville, Pittsburgh.
So
I got a snake, man.
I got a snake, man.
That's the snake. I mean, you're talking. This is an anaconda now, and an anaconda is about to swallow the world. If Blake Bortles,
it
Blake
can't
is a
happen,
snake.
right?
if Blake,
it can't happen.
If Blake the snake can be in the Super Bowl, it will just be so great to watch the world burn.
Now, if everyone is not aware of the Blake Bortles facts Twitter, it's on fire lately. I mean, you got to give it a follow. It's so good. But Blake Bortles and more
Bortles
so the Jacksonville.
Well,
Yes, he did. His third down passing was great, but honestly, the Shazier-less Pittsburgh Steelers, their defense has not been the same since he went down. And the Steelers' offense did everything they could. I mean, whenever you get a 42-45 game, that was a really fun one. But it's going to be.
Did you
guys
guys
exciting
Blake Bortles
to me.
playoff losses 0, Tom Brady 9.
Is that Blake Bortles facts?
Yes.
Did you guys catch the clip of Calais Campbell being interviewed a week ago?
Yes.
And he threw out the scores of something. We can either beat him 3-0 or we can beat him 45-42.
Wow.
Yeah, called out
I mean,
the
how does
exact
that happen?
score.
That's impossible.
They won twice in Pittsburgh. And then, look, this comes down to me. You can say what you want about Tallman and the play calls at the end and the onside kick and the timeouts.
There was some really weird
that's
Haley play calls.
But that's kind of like, that's like the last bite of the sundae. The defense didn't show up. You don't give up 45 at home to the Jags and then get mad about an onside kick you didn't time up right. I mean, to me, it's just that game was lost. In the second, third, and fourth quarter when they gave up, so many points.
Yes.
So, and then the Saints and the Vikings, the game to end all games. Unbelievable performance by both teams. The Saints, they came back. They looked dead. They come back in the second half. They put the game on ice, or so we think, and then a play that you just can't explain.
I've never been more thrilled for a people group at the same time as being heartbroken.
A purple people group?
A purple people eater group. I mean, we around here, we just happen to have, just by luck, a lot of our friends are Vikings fans, and a lot of our friends are Saints fans. So it was like, felt so sorry for people. I mean, nobody deserved to lose that game. Yeah, the horns.
Hey, for a preseason Saints Super Bowl call to go down against that was the play that had to take away the magic. That's fine.
I got trolled
play.
this morning. Someone sent me a message and said, "Yeah, your Saints call looks pretty bad now, doesn't it?" I'm like, I guess.
Wow.
I mean, they lost.
Technically,
they did lose.
We're very incorrect now.
I am so dumb.
Technicalities, man. That's as good as my favorite Blake Bortles fact, which is this. Blake Bortles and Tom Brady have combined for 5 Super Bowl titles, 4 Super Bowl MVP awards, 13 Pro Bowls, and 2 NFL MVP awards.
Wow.
And they're going head-to-head this coming week. So.
All right, we'll move on. I want to get into this consistency stuff with the running backs. That's the meat and potatoes of today's show. A little bit more news. Now, entering the game against the Patriots, a lot of talk about the Titans head coach Mike Mularkey. The report was that he was still on the hot seat, and then
breaking news.
Good news or bad news, depending on your perspective. Mike Mularkey set to sign an extension with the Titans. This news broke after the big week.
They told him, "You're our guy. We're going to extend you after the game is over."
Cool. All right.
Breaking news.
The Titans and coach Mike Mularkey have mutually agreed to part ways.
Oh, all right. This is
all right.
So now we're hearing that Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, is expected to take the Colts job. He's going to leave the Titans. Now, who are the Titans going to get?
I thought you were going to keep this breaking news thing running because it was breaking news 20 minutes ago or however long ago that he was going to take the Titans job.
That's why I started that news bit right there, is I forgot that it had already switched.
Yeah, and now apparently he is set to take the Colts job. We don't know who's the leading candidate now for the Titans.
I'm hearing could be
Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel, yeah.
Yeah, Texans D coordinator.
And then Pat Shurmur is currently expected to take the New York Giants head coaching job, the current offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings.
And Matt Patricia's supposed to go to the Lions.
Yeah, a lot of changes. I will say this for everyone out there, people love these truth episodes. I think they're really valuable. But the episodes that the episode that I think is the most valuable, my favorite one to research during the offseason is our coaching changes episode. We won't do that until all the chips land and we have time to do really good research.
Right.
But looking back year after year, those things are what moves needles in gigantic fashions for teams. So stay tuned and look forward to that.
And some of those big impact situations. Tom Cable's now the offensive line coach in Oakland.
Good luck, Oakland.
The Bills fired their offensive coordinator, Rick Dennison. That's going to matter. They brought in ex-Alabama offensive coordinator Brian DeBoll. You have the former Oregon head coach.
I love it.
Going to Chicago now, Mark Helfrich.
Oh, man, I love it. I mean, this is a guy he played under or he coached under Chip Kelly, eventually rose to the head coach. Get fresh offensive minds in here. Stop hiring freaking Norv Turner.
Oh, yeah, the Panthers hired Norv Turner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, stop. Just stop with these guys who are bouncing everywhere. I mean, I love it. I'm so happy for the Bears that they're moving in this direction.
As opposed to, you're not a big fan of what Oakland's doing.
No, I am not.
Because Oakland's bringing in a lot of – look, I saw Mike Shanahan. When he went to Washington, it didn't work to just sign guys that were good a while back.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's the concern with the staff that Gruden's putting together.
Look, we have these movies. Every generation starts putting them out, and Hollywood comes out. All the old guys. What was the last one? Was like
the Expendables,
Freeman, and I can't remember. But they all come together. They're old. They're going to rob a bank. There's a certain demo that likes these movies and goes to see them. It doesn't work anymore with the youth of the NFL. Things are changing in the NFL big time, and you'll hear some of these numbers for when we're going to talk about what is happening to running backs. To go with the retread, I think, is a gigantic mistake, and my concern for Oakland is building and building.
All right, before we get into the truth of the running backs, I want to pause for a minute and let you know that support for today's show comes from, brand new, an innovative shampoo introducing Control GX, the first gray-reducing shampoo from Just for Men. Look,
The Raiders are going to need it.
Look, we all needed it this weekend. A few gray hairs with if you were betting on those games or you had some of these players or you're a fan of those teams. Look, Just for Men helps men look their best so they can celebrate who they are, what they achieve, how they feel. They've got this innovative new hair care technology that does the work for you. And what is so great about Control GX is you use it just like a regular shampoo until you see what you want to see. The subtle, natural-looking results. Shampoo in, rinse out, move on. It's that easy. Most guys get the results they want in about 2 weeks, and it makes for a smart look. So right now, you can get 25% off Control GX using the code FOOTBALLERS at ControlGX.com. That's the code FOOTBALLERS to get 25% off Control GX at ControlGX.com. Got to look good, Mike.
Got to look good. You want a good look? You head over to pristineauction.com, the best sports memorabilia site in the entire known history of time.
I didn't think you could upgrade, but you did.
I think we've hit the threshold of where I can go with that hyperbolic statement, but it's actually true. I love Pristine Auction. They have hundreds of daily auctions, get new stuff all the time. And I want to read off some of these prices because just based off of what has happened over the weekend, somebody might have got some steals, such as a Stephon Diggs signed Vikings Color Rush jersey for $86. I bet that fine person can walk through downtown Minneapolis and triple whatever they bought that for.
You're probably right.
Or get mugged.
or get mugged.
One of the two.
So,
very valuable item there.
Stay safe. A Devontae Adams signed Packers jersey, $88. A signed Le'Veon Bell jersey, $88. I mean, these prices are ridiculous. Go check it out. The signatures are always authentic. They use the best authenticators in the business, JSA, etc. Go check them out. You can make a completely free account. When you do it, let them know that the Fantasy Footballers sent you. PRISTINE auction.com.
All right, without further ado, let's do it.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
All right, it's time to tell the truth about the fantasy running backs for this past season. What a year it was for one Todd Gurley. Let me break this down for you. If you look at the difference in fantasy points between positions, the RB1, which was Gurley, and Le'Veon Bell, who was the RB2, 52.2 fantasy point difference.
And this is half-point scoring.
In half-point scoring. The difference between Gurley, the RB1, and the RB5 was 92 fantasy points. If you go from RB1 down to RB12, that's a 163-point difference. That's massive. And then you go from RB12 to RB24, that gap is only 38 points. So this is you're starting to get the picture of what the high-profile, top-tier running back does for your fantasy team and the difference it makes.
And for the people who are like, wow, well, Todd Gurley, I mean, that was an unbelievable performance. The season was incredible. Last year, David Johnson had more fantasy points than Todd Gurley had this year. So this is not abnormal. You see the top three running backs, when everything is shaken out, are massively valuable to your team. And I just wanted to give an overview of what running backs are looking like because it was down. Running backs just on the ground, it was overall down compared to 2016. It wasn't as bad as the bleak 2015. We all remember when running backs were pronounced dead and everything was zero running back. We've bounced back a little bit since then. However, last year, 7 running backs, 10-plus rushing touchdowns. This year, only 2. Here is the big difference. I want to start in 2015. 8 running backs had 50 or more receptions. 2016, 11 running backs.
That's more.
Had 50 or more receptions. This year, 14 running backs had 50-plus receptions. Now, it hasn't changed or affected how many running backs are scoring 4-plus receiving touchdowns, but more and more in today's NFL, this is what I was talking about. The NFL is changing. Passing to the running back is crucial in today's NFL. 14 in the matter of 2 years, you have almost doubled the amount of running backs getting 50-plus receptions. That is what they call a boatload.
It's one of the reasons why I'm very uncertain about a guy like Derrick Henry, whereas I think maybe DeMarco Murray, they cut him, and they say they're $6.3 million.
I think they will.
They're going to draft somebody. That's my prediction for Tennessee. They're going to draft another running back to complement Derrick Henry, to provide more in the passing game. Say what you will about Derrick Henry and his ability. The confidence that the previous coaching staff has shown in his pass-catching ability isn't there. I think you're going to see a complement there. That's why I don't know what to do with him exactly in dynasty leagues. We'll find out. But you're right. Look at the players that made huge impacts. I mean, Alvin Kamara is a wide receiver.
Right.
And he lines up at wide receiver all the time. What Kareem Hunt did in the passing game, running a seam route early on in the year and taking it to the house.
Yeah, I mean, Lev Bell with 85 receptions, Todd Gurley with 64. Those four running backs right there, Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Kareem Hunt, and Alvin Kamara, all outscored the number one wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins.
So we're going to break down the fantasy running backs. We're going to go in order of fantasy points produced, and then we're going to give you their consistency rank for the year. And a reminder, here's how we broke down consistency. We looked at players, and we basically said, hey, how many great games did they give us? Great games in the running back position, that's something that is over, 22 points and above?
22 points. That's basically going to give you what amounts to around a top 5 running back performance on a weekly basis.
Good games, more than 10 points, which puts you in that top 24 range on average. And then bust games. If you're fewer than 7 points, you're outside the top 50 on average. That's considered a bust. And we look at those 3 factors, and we determine a consistency rank for you on the year as a running back. And so, look, we'll start with one that worked out both directions. Todd Gurley was the number 1 fantasy running back in half point, and he was the number 1 most consistent. He played 15 games this year, 279 carries, 1,300-plus yards on the ground, 13 touchdowns on the ground, another 64 receptions for 788 yards, and 6 touchdowns. This was David Johnson from last year in a lot of ways. I mean, Johnson caught a few more passes, like you said, but a combined 19 touchdowns.
That's ridiculous.
And he was considered good in 93% of games. And that encapsulates the great games, too. So good in 93%, busted in 1, and then great in 53 of the 93%. That is an incredible season for Todd Gurley. Not that you need to be reminded,
right?
Because you probably already have a picture up on the wall if he took you to the title game.
Yeah, he took you to the title game, or he took you out of the title game. So your picture could be a dartboard. If you, for me, for example, and you look at his splits, because we're going to bring those up. There's really nothing to mention. A half a point difference between top and bottom, 16 defenses, rushing defenses, that is. His home road splits, 2.6 points better at home. No big deal here.
Yeah,
it was a great year.
It didn't matter what the schedule was. I know early in the season, I myself and you might hear a little bit, had the worries about what happens when he faces that
got
tough
a case
run
of the worries.
And Sean McVay said, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass him the ball. He'll be just fine. And in those games, against those tougher defenses, you saw him step up in the passing game. Todd Gurley's as safe as it comes. Next year, he'll be in that conversation for that, one-on-one pick. And
he should be.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you just brought up the coaching changes episode. There's no greater case of, improvement by coach than Todd Gurley. And you're in a situation there. You know how sometimes we get in here and we go, Andy Reid, why don't you just do this with Kareem Hunt? Or you say that about another team. Why don't you just do this with Jay Ajayi or this player?
Sometimes
Gurley,
they do it.
Yeah, sometimes they do it. I mean, this was just Sean McVay. He was in the corner going, yeah, that sounds good. I bet if I give it to my best player more often, we'll score more points.
Success. Great
Genius.
success.
Great coach. I think I can be a coach.
Whereas Steve Sarkisian says, you know what, Teron Ward,
We're going to trick
I owe him one. Because that's
man.
the solution for a partially injured Devonta Freeman was putting in Teron Ward. All right. Lev Bell, number 2 on the year and the number 2 most consistent running back, 321 carries. If you compare that to Gurley's 279, that's a lot more, 42 more. 1,291 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns, 85 receptions. Mike, you were
I was just going to say,
chomping at the bit.
There's not much to say about Le'Veon Bell. 40% of the time was a great game, 93% good. He only busted 7% of the time. His numbers are almost identical to Gurley, save for a handful of touchdowns. My bigger question was going to be, how much stock are you guys putting into Le'Veon Bell coming out and saying that he would rather retire than play under what he deems as an unfair contract if the Steelers were to, say, franchise him again, or they offer him just an amount of money he does not see fit for what he gives to that offense?
I gave that some thought this week, and Jason, you share your thoughts and I'll share mine.
Yeah, I don't think it will happen. I think they'll franchise him. I think he'll play on the franchise tag. But my guess is that it will scare the crud out of everyone because he will hold out for a while. He's not going to just sign it and come into camp. He's going to be one of those, wait it out, rest, do his own thing, and then at the last minute sign it and come in. And that's going to be really scary because of the draft capital that it's going to cost to get Le'Veon Bell. News came out that Big Ben is planning on being back in 2018, which is
Big
great.
News.
That's huge
Great
news.
for Antonio Brown, great for Lev Bell and that whole offense. But I do think he plays on the franchise tag. You're talking about, close to $15 million.
It would be $14.5 million for next season. But I mean, can the Steelers even? Can you put that cap?
Well, they tried to.
Onto.
They tried to put a 2-year, $30 million deal together for him.
Well, they are. I side complete with Le'Veon Bell on this one. You give a guy the ball over 400 times, or the number he was throwing out. You have to pay him accordingly. I know he's a running back, and technically you think, well, we have to give him running back money. He does far more.
I don't disagree with any of that, but I do think that the Steelers are playing this situation to their advantage. Running back shelf life, motivation to play at the top of your game. Look, I don't know Le'Veon Bell. I don't know the man, right? But I do know that there is a tendency, human nature, to when you get that deal, sometimes the edge is gone. And if you have the combination of the amount of money you have to spend on a player of his caliber, his age, the fact that it doesn't last forever in the NFL, I'm not sure that the Steelers aren't doing the smartest thing.
If I were the Steelers,
playing him on a franchise tag.
I would franchise him again without a doubt.
I mean, you what do they?
That's why I thought it was smart
year?
when he came out and said, I might retire if they franchise me, just negotiating power. But
$15 million says he won't.
Because if Big Ben, next year has to be it, right? For Big Ben?
I don't know.
I think it would.
If he goes out, if they go out and they lose in the AFC title game next year, I'm not sure he retires.
Okay.
I think that was a lot of smoke.
Maybe he's gone.
We'll find out.
He's certainly not going to play forever.
I'm just saying, okay, well, if we only have Big Ben for one more year, okay, give Le'Veon Bell his 1 year franchise deal and then be done.
Yeah.
All right. Alvin Kamara finished the year as the third best fantasy running back. Props to Jason. Early in the year, a big favorite of his was Alvin Kamara. Consistency rank of number 6. Okay, good games 81% of the time, 19% bust. He was great in 31% of games. He was great.
Yes.
In 31% of games. The thing about Alvin Kamara, I don't read too much into this consistency number.
No,
because he didn't start.
Because he didn't start the year as
two of his
established.
3 busts were week 1 and week 2.
Why don't you throw those out of there, Jay?
Yeah, no one was really playing him in those weeks. You didn't draft Alvin Kamara and throw him into your lineup week 1. You were waiting to see what you had. You didn't see anything worthy of starting in week 2, so it was a couple weeks until he got going. But once he did, once Adrian Peterson left and it was a 2-man show, you rode him the rest of the way, and he was about as consistent as a guy.
Yeah, and the concussion game, I think, was really the only blip on the radar after that.
Which is to say Alvin Kamara was exceptionally consistent. This team is on, they have a year or 2 left with Breeze at prime. And so it begs the question, do you buy into Alvin Kamara? We've talked a lot about, okay, these numbers, especially the average yards per touch, they can't be sustained. But what I saw yesterday, especially against Minnesota, was when push came to shove, Alvin Kamara was on the field.
Yeah, he's better than Mark Ingram.
He's more flexible, more talented.
Touch his toes.
Yeah, he can touch
his toes
with his wrist.
And maybe he's worthy of the same discussion as a Gurley, Bell, DJ. Now, Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt
You can't,
Who do you draft first in a half point?
Between give me the names again.
No, just Hunt and Kamara.
Oh,
That's going to depend on what Kansas City does at running back
At the
in
quarterback
draft to me.
position too.
the interesting thing is, and it's I mean you can't really read into it,
But let's say you drafted today, Jay.
If I drafted today, I would take Kareem Hunt.
how would it, what I was going to talk about was Alvin Kamara in the playoffs all of a sudden was getting goal line carries, and that's where the biggest difference for him and Mark Ingram was. Mark Ingram is dominant on the goal line. He has been for years. But if they're all of a sudden going to say, well, let's roll out with Kamara at the goal line, that changes things drastically. I mean, he was the number 3 guy here, but if you're worried about regression, but he turns into the goal line back, that changes things in a big, big way.
I doubt in the regular
could help.
season they would turn him into the bruising, short yardage, goal line back. I mean, that's something where he is a smaller guy, so to take that kind of abuse throughout the season, it didn't surprise me that when push came to shove, playoff games, things are on the line, you're not worried about the usage,
Fair.
that they would get him in a little bit more on and near the goal line. But I would be surprised if that happened regular season.
All right, I want to talk about Kareem Hunt, who is the number 4 overall running back, another rookie. Consistency rank of number 10. And here's how I break down Kareem Hunt's season. It's a marathon, right? And he gets out to a blazing start, finishes as the number 1 running back, then number 4, then number 5 in the first 3 weeks. You're dancing with your 4th-round draft pick, Kareem Hunt. Still, great game, 17th, 13th, 16th, 10th. Then you get into this is the part of the marathon where we'll call it the Andy Reid jumped on his back and slowed him down part. 25th, 27th, the bye week, 28th, then 60th, then 38th. So 5 games, 6 weeks, you were scratching your head and you were kind of you were just going. You're putting him out there.
Saying, crap, I should have taken those trade offers.
Yes, you were. And then you've got the second wind when he shook off Andy Reid and 11, 2, 7, and then week 17, we'll throw that out. What do you make of this season for Kareem Hunt? How does he feel compared to the truth? I mean, Jason, is this the time you want to bring up your little your case study?
Yeah, so he is a perfect candidate here to do a truth episode because Kareem Hunt brings a lot of emotion. If you had Kareem
Yes.
Hunt, you got off to this kind of start that you thought, I'm going to dominate everybody and I'm going to win because I got this 4th-round pick that is the best back in the world. Or you traded for him later, maybe you held on, and then in those playoff weeks, he had a great playoff stretch. So the view of Kareem Hunt to a lot of people is super high because there were the emotional beginnings and ends that kind of sandwiched together his 6 bad weeks in a row where you couldn't really use him, 5 games. If you compare that to Melvin Gordon was a disappointment to a lot of people because it cost them more draft capital to acquire if we're just talking about in the draft. And, in general, he didn't score as many points as Kareem Hunt. But when you actually look at how the year broke down, I posted 2 polls on Twitter. One poll said, if you don't take draft capital in and it's just a redraft, who would you have preferred to have on your team this last year, Kareem Hunt or Melvin Gordon? And it was 60-40 Kareem Hunt.
Okay.
People wanted Kareem Hunt. Then I posted the consistency metrics here, basically how many times a player had over 20, had their great game, had their good games, busted, and I put the numbers of Melvin Gordon as player B and Kareem Hunt as player A. So just take the names out and what they did, and it was 68 to 32% people chose they'd rather have the game log of Melvin Gordon when the player name was taken out because Melvin Gordon did not even have 2 games under 10 points back-to-back the entire year. So you want to talk about a consistent player. Some of those upside games, he didn't have the 42-point game monstrosity week 1 that Kareem Hunt did. But Melvin Gordon helped his owners a whole heck of a lot, and it's important that while we take a look at the truth, you remember that because it didn't necessarily feel that way because of what you paid for in the draft, and you have to separate draft cost with production at this time of year.
Yeah, and it was super interesting. If you look at the consistency ranking, Melvin Gordon's the 5th player on this list. He finished as the consistency rank of 7. to Kareem Hunt's 10. He was good 81% of the time. Kareem Hunt was good 63% of the time. Similar great games, 19% for Gordon, 25% for Hunt, so an extra game. Gordon busted more, 19% to 6% for Kareem Hunt. Both of them struggled a little bit against top-tier defenses, not surprising, especially at the running back position where you see teams, you see players do this at times, although if you roll back to Kamara, he had that problem. Didn't really see that with Gurley. Gurley was actually better against top defenses, and Lev Bell was unaffected. But Melvin Gordon, 16 games played, still caught 58 passes. And, I don't know if it was because I didn't have shares of him this year like I had last year. I just didn't feel Gordon. He was just there for me. Now, Mike, what was your experience when you look at those two players, and are you surprised at those poll results Jason just brought up?
Maybe. It's a little surprising when you look at, because the big difference for Hunt and Gordon is, would you rather have a couple fewer bust games, or would you rather have a couple fewer games where you're just good? You don't hurt my team. You do help because you're basically a running back too. So it's interesting to see how people view that the bust versus the good.
See, he performed that experiment on me, and I ended up going with the Melvin Gordon line.
Did you?
I did. I was willing to take a couple extra weeks where he was a pure bust and sacrifice for the level of play that was more consistent.
Very, very interesting.
But it is a somewhat subjective to what else is on your team and how do you play, and it's interesting. But 4-5.
And to say so, just real quick to speak to the rank here that we have, Melvin Gordon as the consistency rank 7. There are two guys who have I think they're both tied at consistency 3, so they push some of these numbers down. But that was David Johnson, because these are game agnostic.
He was very consistent.
He was very consistent. He had one good game and no bad games. So that one kind of doesn't count. And Dalvin Cook, who was amazing. But unfortunately, he left us this year.
Yeah, a lot of players left us this year. They'll be back.
So who would you rather have next year, Kareem Hunt or Melvin Gordon?
Man, I'm with you.
That is a great question.
I'm with you, Jay. I want to see what the Chiefs do.
I'll take Melvin Gordon.
I want to see what the Chiefs do. I lean Kareem Hunt, but is Char West back? Is Spencer Ware back? Do they draft someone who profiles as a pass-catching back?
What is the impact of Pat Mahomes? Alex Smith is gone.
Right.
Mark Ingram comes in at number 6 with a consistency rank of number 12. That is 2 Saints running backs in the top 6 performers in fantasy. 230 carries, 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns, 58 receptions for another 416 through the air. Did not score through the air. Bit surprising on that many receptions, actually. 71 targets, caught 58 of them, proving that he's still a very high efficiency back out of the backfield. 25% great games, 56% good games, only 6% bust games. And he, too, like Kamara, had a little bit of that beginning of the year, dealing with Adrian Peterson in the rotation. Look, what can you say, Mark Ingram? Just playing good and real good at home.
His interesting thing is he +6 at home, which people read into this differently. If some people like the high home road splits because you know exactly when to play him. Mark Ingram had that a little bit more because he was +6 at home, and he was 5 points better against bottom defenses. So you get that bottom 16 rush defense at home. Oh, you were good to go. You knew that Mark Ingram was going to have a monster game.
Yeah, I like Mark Ingram a lot. I mean, one of the things we have to keep in mind is when we talk consistency, this is all just 2017 consistency, but we've got consistency charts in the Ultimate Draft Kit that look at their career, which I think are extremely helpful. And you could just take a glance and be like, oh, yeah, Mark Ingram has 3 years in a row been a top 10 back, and you're not going to have to draft Mark Ingram.
I was just going to say, where is Ingram's draft stock?
Ingram's going to be drafted in the second round at the highest.
Behind Kamara.
Oh, absolutely behind Kamara.
During the super stretch of the year, that 9-game stretch in the middle, 8 of 9 games Kamara was in the top 12. 6 of those 9, that Ingram was in the top 12. That's incredible.
So you think second round?
Yeah.
I would just take the.
I'm going
I would
lower.
probably take the
Oh,
lowest.
I'm saying
At the
that's
earliest?
the peak. He won't ever
Okay,
be
well,
drafted.
give me the Jason Moore. This is where Mark Ingram's going to be drafted.
Well, Jason Moore will draft Mark Ingram at the back of the
not
second.
where you will draft him. Where the people.
I think that the average person will disrespect Mark Ingram, and he will go to the third round on average,
I will take the better value between the two Saints running backs.
which would be Mark Ingram.
Yeah, I agree.
Kamara will be a first
58. Look,
Yes.
58 receptions. So Kamara scored 5 times through the air on 81 receptions. Ingram scored 0 times on 58. And it's not like he doesn't have game-breaking ability. He took a bunch of long runs to the house. It's interesting. LaShawn McCoy finished 7th. Consistency rank on the year was 11th. 287 for 1138 and 6. 59 receptions for 448 and 2. Busted 13%, good 69%, great 25%, and very good 6.7 fantasy points better at home than on the road. Fairly large split. You know, the truth was when they were at home, these
There was
games
a better team.
Yeah, they were a better team. They were closer. These games were closer. They could lean on the run. McCoy for next year, it's an interesting case because I don't think Tyrod's back, but you do have a coach that led him to the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And
You have a new OC. New OC. You're going to have a new quarterback. Shady will be.
Are we going to undervalue
interesting.
him or overvalue him next year? That's the question. And I think that I'm
going
thinking
under.
I'm going to undervalue him. That's how I worry.
I think that the general consensus for Shady will be an undervaluing of and he's also old.
Yeah.
When you're talking running back years,
64 years old.
in running back
he's
years,
very
yes.
old in running back years. He's also now going to hit that threshold of carry or touch totals that running backs usually fall away from their. You know, look what happened to DeMarco Murray this season. There's going to be fear of that, and fear of that is going to push Shady down. So next year what's going to happen is really simple. Shady will be a really good value because he's going to go a little bit later than the top backs if he does not fall away. If he falls away, it's going to be like DeMarco. Where would DeMarco Murray needed to have been drafted for you to actually go, yeah, I was really happy with that pick?
7th round.
Exactly. I mean,
Well,
late.
but for every
Murray got
every
hurt.
DeMarco case with a split backfield, you've got the 4-year wait for Frank Gore to drop off. And I want to be clear. LaShawn McCoy did not show any drop-off. That's the important thing. Speculation about his age and his carry totals are not the same thing as seeing it on the field like you saw with DeMarco Murray. That's why I think he'll be undervalued. So I think we agree on that. Leonard Fournette.
Did you guys know that I'm looking over it? Shady has never been under 4.0 yards per carry on a season.
How many?
Never.
Yeah.
Which
4.0 yards.
4.0 yards a carry.
That it just sounded funny.
I think it's still accurate.
Okay.
It did sound funny.
Didn't it? We were both
Okay, so how would you say it?
4 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm getting even more specific.
You are.
4.0?
Yes.
Why? Yes. But if you want to get even more specific, 4.00. He's never had.
Darn you, Jason Moore.
It's actually 4.00.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
the 4.0, that was actually this year. So it's his lowest yards per carry, but it didn't look like he lost
Perfect
anything to
grade
me.
point average, though.
Oh,
true.
excellent.
Fournette-
Dean's list.
Fournette was the 8th ranked fantasy running back. Makes sense. Played 13 games. Consistency rank at number 5, though.
I was surprised
That's
by that.
great.
Yes. He
85% of his games were good. A team that runs the ball, busted 15%, great 15%. Not as many breakout superstar games as some of the leaders, but he sure started the year well.
Now, in our ranking system here, he's not penalized for the games that he missed due to injury. And I think when you look at Fournette, you kind of have this feeling similar to Kareem Hunt, where in the middle of the year, everything kind of went away because you didn't have him for a couple games when he was injured. And then when he came back,
And his bye week was also smashed
it was
in there.
right in there, and 2 of the 3 games that were his poorest games were right in that stretch. So there was that period where he wasn't good. But when you look at the whole, he was just utilized so much and performed so well. He was extremely consistent in all of those games. And the nice thing about – and the reason why we take out these games that you missed due to injury is no one started him. You know, if you're not gonna, if he doesn't play, he's not actually hurting your team
Right.
like a bust game hurts your team. other than maybe the 1 week where he was a last-second shocking inactive. Maybe he would have hurt you there.
Just looking at the dates to explain further into your story, Jay. October 15th was the game before the injury. Then he didn't play again until November 12th. So in fantasy football terms, that is also 62 years.
Right. 36 receptions. First player on this list with under 53. That was something that you don't get. You don't get that out of Leonard Fournette. And we saw even in the playoff game yesterday, TJ Yeldon is a great role player. He's a great player to come out of the backfield on third down. He did everything yesterday to say, I'm glad you took Leonard Fournette out on third down. I mean, that was what you got. And so there is a game flow dependency situation there with Leonard Fournette. There's also, I mean, I think the lower amount of great games has a lot to do with the fact he doesn't get to dip into both bins, right?
Certainly.
The wide receiver bin and the running back bin.
You got to talk about it, though. Leonard Fournette and these injuries. Yes, when he played, he was great, or at least very good for your team. Only played in 13 games, but I mean, what did you have? You had 3 or 4 foot or ankle injuries for Leonard Fournette. Is this any concern for you, Jason, for a guy who in college he had similar problems? I mean, talking.
He had some issues with Melvin Gordon up ahead of him. He had some issues with LaShawn McCoy being a little banged up.
Yeah, I mean, the issue that is
Shady
concerning.
played 16 games.
Yeah, the part that's concerning is what you said. The fact that it happened in college. It's happened for several years running. That does concern you a little bit more, but it's not going to ever push me away from drafting him or at the draft cost, because one of the things you might notice as you're listening, right? We're talking about these top 10 running backs so far, and pretty much everyone is at least a top 12 in the consistency. Very different than how wide receivers were and how other positions will be, because at the end of the year, and this is what we said in the beginning, those top running backs, they're in a world of their own. Once you get past those 10 or 11 guys, then you're just completely
Narnia.
into guys that
They're out
you're streaming, or you're playing matchups, or you're just
Centaurs,
or you're getting a lot of bust games. And Leonard Fournette is one of those guys. I know if he's active, he's getting the ball, he's getting the goal lines, he's going to be a workhorse back. So I'm not going to be scared off because of injury. Everyone gets injured.
He played 13, but he missed one that wasn't due to injury. That was due to suspension.
Sure. Well,
14 games.
Maybe
All
it
right,
was.
We need to move on. We're going to get through 10 today, and then we're going to get into a bunch of names on the Thursday show, like Christian McCaffrey, Lamar Miller, and C.J. Anderson, Alex Collins, a bunch of names I'm excited to talk about.
Those names will have much more varied rankings in their consistency, because you'll see it becomes a crapshoot here.
But Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Elliott round out our top 10. Hyde was the 9th-ranked fantasy running back, 9th most consistent running back, played 16 games, something that was on his bucket list. 240 carries for 938 yards. Okay, 59 receptions, but just 350 yards on those. I think that showed he was maybe not as capable in the receiving game, but was a victim of opportunity there versus efficiency. I mean, 60 carries for 350 yards, or 60 receptions for 350 yards. That's not a lot. 87 targets, though. You like that. But you've got a new quarterback in town with Jimmy G, and a new situation for Carlos Hyde heading into next year. Busted 19% of the time, was good 75% of the time, and struggled a bit against good defenses. What do you think of Carlos Hyde heading into next season? What do you think about this past year? What's the truth about him?
Well, first off, we need to know where he's going to go.
Are you happy or sad? Let me ask you that question. I genuinely, before the year, what you thought about Carlos Hyde to now?
Very happy.
You're happy.
Yes,
for sure.
He's the 9th-ranked running back, and with even on consistency, this isn't just he came through sort of. He's top 10 in both.
Okay,
and this is a running back who I had to put up the good fight for this guy.
So he met your expectations or exceeded them.
Yes, and on a bad team, and but moving forward, where is he? That was a contract year. We don't know if he will be back in San Francisco. And it's honestly, I don't know. I can't even put the odds on it because I've talked to.
Well, he came out to say we're winning the Super Bowl next year. Does that mean he gets to stay on the team?
Maybe, but I've talked to fans from San Francisco, and they say the rumblings in the bushes are that he won't be back, but he's talking about like he will be back automatically. I will say the thing that changed for Carlos Hyde though, the targets.
Yes,
when Jimmy GQ and all of his handsome passes came in,
so handsome.
Those handsome targets were not going to Carlos Hyde with the
Jimmy G didn't have to check down.
Correct.
The way that others did. Before Jimmy Graham took over.
Very ugly Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, before Jimmy Graham took over.
Hideous.
Carlos Hyde had 5 games with 5 or more receptions, not just targets. He had 5 games with 5 or more receptions. That's part of why Carlos Hyde finished as the number 9 running back this year. He had a game with 9, a game with 7 receptions. Once Jimmy Graham Jimmy
G.
Once
Jimmy Graham took over at quarterback.
Once Jimmy G took over, Jimmy GQ.
Did you say Kenny G?
What? Oh, so handsome,
so smooth and handsome.
I just didn't know the next time I'd be able to use it.
He never had more than 3 receptions. So I think that there's pros and cons too, because with a better quarterback, that means you're going to be in more games.
Scoring
you're
opportunity.
going to be up more. So I think it'll be a wash. But from a consistency perspective, I prefer the running back that is in that pass-catching role, because if they're up, he gets more opportunity. If they're down, he's used in the passing game.
There's going to be some interest. Matt Burita watch for Dynasty Leagues, Joe Williams, and then Carlos Hyde, where he ends up. That a lot has to shake out there in the draft and through free agency. But a very good year. You look at that season. You look at the consistency charts in the in our jointhefoot.com stat page. It blows your mind because he just really was solid.
Yes, and for where you drafted him, it was fantastic. Yes, I think Carlos Hyde, talent-wise, if he was given a role like Shady in an offense, I think he could succeed. I don't know if he would hold up.
He would die.
Yes, I don't know if he would hold up. Considering this is the first year of the 16 games, I think talent-wise he is on par with those elite running backs.
Yeah, I mean,
no, he's great.
He's not.
He is great.
Okay, all right.
I would not put his talent as great.
Certainly, he's not the pass-catching weapon that Shady McCoy is, and that's really what it comes down to me. Just because you catch him doesn't mean you're the same type of weapon. What did Ingram? Ingram had 416 yards on those carries, so not way off, but yeah, he played well. I can't argue with that. Zeke, rounding out this episode, consistency ranking number 4. The message with Zeke is obviously the suspension killed his season, but he was good 90% of the time. He only busted once on the year. What do you make of the very large disparity against great defenses, or is this just a smaller sample size?
Smaller sample. That's where I lean.
Yeah, if you look at his game log, he crushed everyone. Week 2, Denver, he had a terrible game. The Cowboys did. Outside of that,
2.6 receptions a game, though, in his games played. Kind of low from where you'd hope to see Zeke. If he is, getting Fournette-like reception numbers, that's going to be an area where you're looking at Lev Bell, David Johnson, Alvin Kamara, and you're more attracted to the potential.
Yeah, before the suspension was looming, I mean, it was basically, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, and Zeke, but Zeke would always be third because exactly what you're saying, he doesn't have that reception. What Zeke has done this year and what the consistency as being the number 4 most consistent back says is, it just says, hey, don't forget about me. Don't forget about how good Zeke was his rookie year and how good he was this year just because he missed so many games.
Zeke or Fournette next year?
I'll take Zeke without a doubt.
I will take Zeke. I think Zeke's a better running back.
Zeke or Kamara?
Zeke.
Yeah, probably Zeke. I mean, the game log for Zeke, the game where he busted against Denver, 9 attempts for 8 yards. I mean, absolute total crap fest. But other than that game, he had at least 20-plus carries in every other game.
They struggled, though, as an offense this year.
Yes.
And would you say is it
Zeke
fair to
not,
say
though.
if it's Lev, DJ, Zeke were the top tier this past year, do you graduate Gurley? Do you graduate
Yes.
Kamara?
No.
I have him.
Do you graduate Hunt?
No. I graduate
See, I
Hunt
would
to
like-
another tier, but
when
not
those
to that
rookies,
tier. Not to,
I
not
don't
to the
move
tier
rookies
one.
into that after one solid year, probably.
Yeah, I think that they're Kamara and Hunt will be in that tier that Shady was in this season.
Right.
Speaking of
Yes.
the draft,
Okay.
you still really, really wanted him on your team, but if you had a top 3 pick, you weren't grabbing Shady.
Tons of other names we're going to be bringing up on the Thursday show, like Jay Ajayi, like DeMarco Murray and Jerick McKinnon, Alex Collins, Lamar Miller, Dion Lewis, who had another great game yesterday. Going
Dion.
to talk through a ton more truth on the Thursday episode.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Hey, don't forget, support for today's show comes from Control GX, the first shampoo that gradually reduces gray from just for men. Just use Control GX as you would your normal shampoo until you like what you see. Subtle, natural-looking results. You can get 25% off Control GX using the code FOOTBALLERS at ControlGX.com. That's footballers to get 25% off Control GX at ControlGX.com. Look forward to a smart look.
Looking
Control
smart.
And
GX.
don't forget, you can play some DFS with us. Best ball.
Play best ball already.
Draft.com/ballers. See ya.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.